Society is obsessed about solving ocean plastic by cleaning the oceans. But my guest today says we are missing the point entirely.
The biggest flaw in all the discussion is not about cleaning up oceans. If the tap is open in the kitchen, we should not get the water out until we close the tap.
That is Axel Pieters. At his peak, he managed 12 million tons of waste a year. He didn't do that at a typical waste management company, but within a cement company called Holcim. From that experience, he knows exactly how to close that tap. He argues that the technology to solve the crisis isn't a decade away. It is already here. It is not just one solution that he believes is required, but a lot of different ones. And it does involve the global cement industry, temperatures of 2000 degrees, and a process that leaves zero residue.
Cement kilns run on 2000 degrees. With this high temperature, you can actually destruct more critical chemicals than any other installation.
So why aren't we doing it? He says it isn't a lack of science. It is the brutal economics of trash.
It's an issue about money. If something has a negative value, who's paying for it?
If you want to know how we can actually solve the plastic crisis in the next 20 years, listen to this. This is Life in Plastic with Axel Pieters.
Life in Plastic.
Axel, how much waste did you manage in your peak in your career?
I know that GeoCycle annually is doing 12 million tons of waste every year. Wow. That's 60% fuel and 40% raw materials. So with that, it's the largest or second largest waste management treatment company in the world. The one outbeating us are the landfills in the USA.
That is insane. So you've seen quite a bit. And from your experience, what does the majority of people get wrong about plastic pollution?
So first of all, plastic is a material which is very useful. If you, for example, take in India, that the people in India, they are raised with noodles. A pack of noodles is costing something like 1.2 cents. It's cheap with boiling water. It is also clean. Children are raised with this. And it is in a small plastic wrapper. If they would change this to some other material, then the price of the noodles will go up from 1.2 cents to 4 cents, which they cannot afford. Also, the noodles will expire quickly because plastic is a very conservation material. So we're fighting these plastic wrappers a lot, but in principle, they also have a good purpose. The biggest flaw in all the discussion is not about cleaning up oceans and all these things, which is still fine. We still need to do it, but if the tap is open in the kitchen, we should not get the water out until we close the tap. There's a big lack of collection in the world. Less than 50% of the people in the world is actually connected to waste management service or collection. And that's where the problem starts. So it's not such a problem that it is plastic, but it's about the waste management services which are just non-existent. And that's the problem, because from nothing you cannot create anything. That's the biggest problem.
No. And this is also the main topic of our conversation today. For someone who's never heard it before, what is coprocessing?
It's a weird word. It was invented probably 50 years ago, and they said we want to differentiate from incineration for good reason. Because when you have an incinerator, for example, it incinerates waste. It therefore creates heat, and with heat you can steam water you can make, or steam you can make electricity. But at the end of the day, when you look to a waste-to-energy plant, 20 to 30% is remaining as ash. Ash cannot be used, and it has also a downside. It is very high on heavy metals. So in Europe, we use this ash as stabilizers under highways, etc. But in principle, it's also landfilling. It's not perfect. When you look to cement plants, they have one huge advantage. First of all, they have extremely high temperatures. Cement kilns run on 2000 degrees centigrade compared to a waste incinerator 800. So they have almost triple the temperature. With this high temperature, you can actually destruct more critical chemicals than any other installation. Secondly, they have a long duration time above 1400 degrees, because the length of the high temperature is also important to achieve that goal. And once the energy content is gone, there is ash remaining, and the ash remains are utilized in the cement as a raw material, and they are similar, like cement kilns anyhow add fly ash to their cement kilns. So it is an option, a technology which leaves zero residues. And I think that's why they call it CO. It is incineration, recovery of energy, and reuse of raw materials. And that's why they call it CO. There are two processes taking place at the same time.
Can you quickly explain how cement production works and why heat is so necessary?
Yeah, look, the cement is no, that's not true. Concrete is the second used raw material in the world after water. Annually, there's 4 billion tons of concrete and cement used per year in the world to build highways, houses. So it's the most useful material in construction to build skyscrapers, bridges, tunnels, railways, whatever. So the consumption is huge. This is produced by roughly 4,000 cement kilns in the world. They're everywhere. They need to be close to their proximity where actually the material is used, let's say within 300, 400, 500 kilometers, and that's it. You cannot transport it from China to Europe. It would be too expensive because it's a mass good, it's too heavy. So Chinese cement plants are used in China, Europeans in Europe, and it's not traveling around the world a lot. The process to produce cement means that you have a quarry with limestone. In principle, if you heat that up to 1450 degrees, the material is split up in calcium oxide and CO2. And you use traditionally, cement kilns use coal or gas. And if you have the calcium oxide, which splits up from the limestone, you cool it down, you grind it, and you add 3% of fly ash, you have Portland cement. Sounds very simple. The complexity lies in the volume. So a cement plant in Europe is producing 2,000 tons a day. In Asia, there are plants doing 12,000 tons a day of cement. Those are huge volumes which you need to transport in, you need to transport out, the fuel, etc. And that's the process of a cement production.
And you don't have to be a climate genius to know that the cement industry is often in the crossfire when it comes to climate change.
Yeah.
Where in the process do you generate carbon emissions?
Two ways. So first of all, limestone splitting up in calcium oxide and CO2. That's inevitable. That's more than 50% of the whole process, which is an issue for the cement industry. The other one is, of course, the fuel component, which is traditionally gas and coal, but yeah, you can replace this for other things, and preferably through biomass containing materials. So that can also be purely biomass, like coconut shells, rice husk, etc. But these volumes are very limited available, and then you start looking to other things like car tires, because they're made out of natural rubber, or, for example, municipal waste. Municipal waste has 60% of organic content in it, depending on which country you are. Probably, so you have 60% biomass in it, and that's actually a renewable CO2. So you replace that one by from coal to gas, you move to a waste stream. Which, by the way, is not perfect. No solution is perfect. I think recycling is also not perfect, and waste to energy is not perfect. But yeah, we need all these solutions to tackle the problem.
Yeah. Now, if people hear we're incinerating plastic, the first thought is this is toxic. Why can't cement plants use plastic as a fuel?
Yeah, because of these extreme high temperatures, they destruct all the components within the waste. So there's no residue at all. And what you see is that almost all cement plants worldwide, they have live chimney stack monitoring, which goes directly to the authorities, so they can see what's coming out. And there are strict norms on what actually the emission can be. When a cement plant starts utilizing waste in their plant, they need to meet the waste incineration directives and emission standards. So actually it becomes tighter. Because of the high temperatures, they can easily manage this. When you go to the developing world, it's the same story. India is very strict on emissions.
So the high temperatures destroy whatever toxic material there might be.
They are capable in utilizing PCB, pesticides, PFAS. They can destroy all these molecular structures because of these extreme high temperatures.
What does one need to do to actually feed waste into a cement plant? Can I imagine it like a big oven and I just shovel it in there?
Look, a cement kiln is in principle, the modern cement kilns, they have a rotary kiln, and before the rotary kiln there is a precalciner, which you can compare to a fluid bed incinerator. It has 4 to 5 cyclones. So if you have the cement kiln, you can feed most materials, but you need to go to a certain height, 80 to 110 meter, because that's the perfect point for injection into a cement kiln. And because it's also high volumes, you need to start installing transport belts to get this material up. But most important, also firefighting equipment. That is costing a lot of money. What is then on top of it extremely important, you can just not throw in everything into a cement kiln. So there's also a pre-processing step where you mix a shredder, sort material, which then becomes a perfect material for a cement kiln. And that's not easy. The whole pre-processing part is a big part. What a cement kiln wants is a constant quality of material. And if you 1 hour start feeding biomass, and then an hour car tires, and then municipal waste, and then plastic, a cement plant has a big issue. So you try to prepare a homogeneous, constant quality of material. And yeah, that means that investment needs to be made. For a cement kiln, you talk about, normally if nothing is there, 25 million is usually spent just on the feeding installations and into the pre-sorting and sometimes some chloride management. Especially cement kilns are very afraid of production loss. Yeah, so if you would inject only water, finally it will end up in lower production of cement, and that's costing the company money. So you try to make it as well as possible, so there is no production loss in cement. Otherwise, it will cost them too much.
What is it they can't take if we stay on plastics?
Now, mainly chlorine is a big issue. So PVC has a high chlorine content, and that's a big challenge for cement kilns because that leads to buildups in the cement kiln. And there are some particular heavy metals like mercury, cadmium, and thallium because they have the chemical thing that they said we don't want to be destroyed, we go out of the chimney, and they are also on top of it highly poison for humanity. So they measure on 1 ppm, 1 part per million, if there's 1 part per million mercury in it. If it's above 1 million, they don't accept it.
So there's quite rigorous safeguards around that process. And why is it that there's still so much, at least perceived, fight against this project or process?
Now, yeah, there are also cowboys in the business. So I can only talk about the more mature professional companies, but there are also pictures and images you can find on the internet where they take a shovel and they shovel it in. In India is a great example that actually they are one of the few countries where coprocessing is in the legislation and also preferred because they see it as a free ticket of good, proper waste management into the treatment of waste, because this country has an issue. Why is it so negative? I don't know. There are big cement companies. There's a lot of buzzing around that we should stop plastic and go to paper bags and we should stop using it. My experience is that we should be extremely careful looking through our European glasses to the topic and go back to, okay, go to these countries and then you see it's not that easy. The whole discussion on a paper plastic bag, a paper bag is numerous times of volumes of raw material. You need to chop down a tree, and actually all the life cycle analysis show that the plastic bag, as long as you treat it properly and you don't put it into the ocean, is the best solution.
Because you also, in relation to that, often read headlines like, we're basically putting the landfills in the sky.
Yeah, it's not true. Because like I said, the emissions of a cement kilns are lower when they only use coal. And I agree, you need to look to the waste hierarchy. If you can avoid waste, please avoid it. If you can reuse waste or reuse it, fine. If you can recycle it. But then go to coprocessing, and then go to waste energy, and then go to, and the last is, of course, open dumping and open burning, because that's also happening in the world. And open dumping is the biggest issue, because that's the part which is ending up in the ocean. Why? Because there's lack of collection and treatment, and people don't know what to do. And if you go to the slums in everywhere in the world, first they start putting fire to it, because you burn it, because then you get rid of it, and then they realize that children were getting sick, and that it's not good for your health. So let's dump it. Why? And then monsoon comes. All these ocean plastics are coming from countries. We have huge monsoons and river, therefore, and then in 2-3 months, all the plastic is gone. And that's where solutions need to be found. The beauty about, I'm not sure if it's beauty. The good thing is that these cement kilns are also in these areas. They're in Nigeria, they're in Kenya, they're in India, they're in Indonesia, everywhere where people cannot afford it. Cement kilns can actually offer solutions. It's an issue about money. If something has a negative value, who's paying for it? This is the issue. And then you need to compete with landfills. There are not so many industries where they take the product and they also take your money. The only one I can think of is the hairdresser. They take your hair, your money. And waste management is the same.
Yeah. These things self-ignite. And this is when all the nasty stuff happens that people are scared of, right? Because then the waste burns at much lower temperatures.
It's very incomplete combustion, because there's almost no oxygen in it. And these landfills are all overfilled. So I think the oldest landfill in the world is in Mumbai. It's in the middle of the city, and it burns every year. You can Google it, landfill Mumbai, satellite picture, and then you see a nice smokestack coming out, especially before monsoon. The pressure on the waste is so high that the temperatures go up, and they don't know how to put it out because it's 10 meters within the landfill. You can put it out, but you need nitrogen, and that's very expensive. And then you start injecting nitrogen to take these fires out. But these countries, look, a landfill in Delhi is accepting 25,000 tons a day. Those are numbers, they are staggering. Yeah?
How much would you say is already used by cement, or where do we stand globally? How much waste do cement kilns take, and how much could they take?
Look, in Europe, there are cement kilns running 100% or 99.9% on waste. There are some examples in Austria. We did a trial in the past in Sri Lanka where we run 100% on waste and not utilizing any coal anymore, with a blend of biomass and all kinds of other stuff. So it is possible. It can be done. What I know, if you look to countries like Indonesia, Asia, etc., on average, they only replace, I would say 15%, and that's already tops, of their fuel with waste, where the potential could be 100%. Yeah, so, probably you could do 100 or 200 million tons of waste there.
So we have countries where we have cement plants that are not fully utilized. We have a ton of plastic waste and waste in general that remains untreated. Why is that mismatch?
It could be, it's all about money in many cases. Why would a landfill owner who already received the material and then he would pay to get rid of it? To extend his lifetime as landfill, he's not interested in this. So it's mainly about economics, and landfill tipping fees worldwide are between $0 and $7 per ton, and that's where the problem starts. If you go to UAE, Dubai is a couple of dollars per truckload. It's nothing. And you pay $1 to landfill it. How can you compete with $1 to landfill? That's where the pain starts. If you're in Mumbai and you start applying landfill tax, people need to pay it because it goes to the people. And if your average salary is 50 euros a month, 10 euros for this guy is a quarter of his salary. There's no way that he will do this, and the municipality cannot afford it. So again, it's an issue about the economics. There needs to be more funding not in capex, because capex is not the issue, but in the operational expenses, in the opex. That's where, if this price is going up, I always say, if the price of plastic would be at $1,000 a ton, the problem would be solved.
No.
And it's not, because it's zero, it's actually negative, and that's the problem.
I give you the 25 million you need to build in the technology for a cement plant. I'm just playing a bit devil's advocate. Would that argument still hold up? Because
no, because you still have operational expenses. It's not about the capex. It's not. We don't need money for capex. The waste will not come, and that's, for example, where many institutes make the difference. It's not about the investment in shredders and sorting lines. We have in Dubai, you have many plants were built by subsidies. To sort plastics and to make a fuel for cement industry. But the landfill price is still around zero. These plants are mothballed and they're not running, despite 25 million investment. Even if they would get it for minus €3, they would get it in cement kilns. It's a loss-giving business. When you have, let's say, $25 a ton landfill cost, that means that you can earn something. It's all about the pricing of these materials. And plastics, besides PET bottles and PE foil, all the other plastics, they have a negative market value. Nobody wants them. It's negative. So you need to pay for it. And that's the problem.
And today you're buying coal at a specific price. Like nobody's giving you coal for free either, right? So why can't you, once the infrastructure is in place, give a bit of money to the collectors for the plastic they deliver, if it's an energy value in the end?
Because your operational expenses, so to run such a platform on electricity, maintenance, spare parts, etc., you talk about the best case scenarios are 7 to 8 euros a ton cost, just the cost. And we have the logistics on top of it, which normally is 10 to 15. So you talk about roughly a price, best case, best class, $20 a ton cost price to collect the material, to pre-treat it, and then feed it into a cement kiln. And that 20 is a cost, and the cement plant is not capable in covering that expenses by not utilizing the coal. So somewhere we need to get back to zero, and once you're around zero costs, then it becomes a fully business model. We should not focus on the material which is already collected, because, look, landfill is not perfect, but it's still a solution. We should actually focus on the 50% which is not collected, and then we need even a bit more money, because there we need to also collect at the front gate, we need to sort, we need to help them, we need to train them, we need to build some installations, some containers where they could put material on, we need to have transfer stations, because you collect the waste, but you cannot bring it in one day. And if you see, again, the volumes are high, so a transfer station is also costly. It needs to store thousands of tons of waste before you can ship it out.
You stepped out operationally from basically being one of the largest waste managers, and now you have a more consulting role, I would say.
So I'm more a consultancy in circular economy, circular solutions, but also one of my favorite is startups and supporting and helping them to see if they can get to the next move through my connections, but also from my managerial experience, passion for circular economy, especially in the developing world. What cleanup is doing is for me one which is close to my heart, because I truly believe that we should find solutions there. And I'm a big believer in plastic credit systems, because I think that's the only way how we could make an impact. If we can make collection happening there, and we could collect money and add a bit of money to the whole materials, solutions can be done and would have a massive world impact. We could solve the whole issue in coming 10, 20 years. It is possible. I see companies moving more towards the developing world, but they need to again learn that the sorting stations which we have in Europe, they are a no-go in the countries because they're too expensive. They're too nice. It needs to be low cost, cheap. Otherwise, they cannot be successful. I think there are some progressions there. Things are moving. I also believe that governments are getting into a point that they realize they need to throw some money at it. You see that the big multinationals, let's give them some names, Coca-Cola or Unilever or Procter & Gamble, they're not willing, or Nestle, they're not willing to actually confess that their plastics going to the market, that they are partially responsible for actually cleaning it up. And I can understand why. I think that Nestle is the biggest plastic contributor or waste contributor in the world. But if we could get that money from them and do it in another way, I think we could be way more impactful. But we should keep it simple, transparent, but also simple.
There's one last topic that I want to touch on that I forgot earlier, lock-in effects. This is one big thing that comes up when we talk about any kind of waste-to-energy infrastructure.
Yeah.
Can you explain what it is and if it applies in the cement industry? You put the 25 million on the table, so you need to actually run the infrastructure, so you need to burn the waste to ever see a return on it. You have no financial incentive to just decommission and say, oh.
Look, when I started in Eastern Europe, the first thing my boss told me is that sign a contract for 10 years. And I told him, I'm not signing a contract for 10 years, I signed a contract for a week. I can understand when you build a waste-to-energy plant, you talk about way higher investments. That's the beauty about the cement kiln. The incineration capacity is already installed. It's already there. You just need the feeding installations. And that's why the investment is way lower.
I agree. And I think there's no scenario right now where we will go to zero waste. It's just not on the horizon.
No, like I told you the story about the Maggi noodles in India. We can dream of this zero waste, but how do you want to feed 120 million people every day for 1.2 cents? That's an issue. And plastic protects the food for the kids, etc. It's a double. Yeah, and the sackets, the plastic bags are a problem, but they need to be collected. And if they're not collected, because the poor people take this one, and if it's not collected, finally the wind will take it, goes into a river, and it ends up in the ocean. Yeah. But that's where we need to find solutions. Nice story. When I was in Romania, I was driving to a refinery where we did some work, and I was almost surprised why people dumped their waste across the highway. It was mountains of waste along the highway. But then I realized that the municipality has placed waste bins along the highway, and people took their waste from home and put it along the highway, so it would have been collected. Unfortunately, the municipality decided then to remove the waste bins because it was too much work. But people are willing, if there's a disposal somewhere in that area, people always say it's a matter of education. I don't think it's a matter of education. It's just primarily offer them a waste bin where they can put their waste in and it is collected in a proper way. It's fundamental as that.
Yeah, I think it's just very logical. As long as we don't live in a 100% circular world, there will be refuse material, there will be waste that needs disposal. And I think in the end, coprocessing is the best solution for disposal, while disposal is obviously the worst thing that you can do with material because then it's gone.
But recycling, like I said, the waste hierarchy, start reusing and recycling, that's the preferred solution. And circularity is perfect. But we should be careful that we don't say, okay, we only want circularity, so everything else is shit. No, that's not true. We're not there yet. And we have to be realistic. I don't think in my lifetime we will achieve it. Maybe in some European countries. The problem with this is that we should also think about this. So the first 10% will be easy. Up to 50% will be difficult. And then from 50 to 90% will be damn hard. And the last 10% will be Formula One rocket science. Should we not spend this last 10% or 50% in another way? If we see what we save on circularity or even on carbon in Europe, maybe you should just spend your money in other countries where you can achieve way greater goals for less money. You've been in Asia. They use a lot of air conditionings, but they never heard of double glass or ventilation strips. They put the air conditioning on. Just putting ventilation strips there would save so much electricity already in CO2. And it's also with waste. If we see what we do here to become circular, maybe we should stop at a certain time and start spending our money in other countries where for the same price we can achieve 10 times more.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you so much for your perspectives. Is there anything, any point of criticism that you've heard before that I forgot to bring up?
No, everything. Thank you, Joel, and thank you, Cleanup.
Thank you.
Life in plastic.